Hey, everybody, and welcome to Innovation Insights. This is where we dive into innovation, entrepreneurship, and how we can get products from the lab or from research out into the market, or even just ideas that we have as entrepreneurs, how we can make them a reality, get people using them, and make the world a better place. Today, I have with me Emmanuel Matthew, a friend of mine that I've known for almost 20 years now. And Emmanuel, why don't you just introduce yourself real quick?
Hi, yeah, my name's Emmanuel. I'm CEO of a few companies, Rattle Tech, Everywhere, and Linear Systems. We kind of have a group of companies. So they're all in the software space. We like building innovative applications for local government, law enforcement, and businesses.
Awesome. So, like I say, we met almost 20 years ago when we were both pitching at a Tech Coast Angels event. And you were pitching Everywhere, and
Right.
I was pitching a Reba card. And a Reba card went down in flames, but Everywhere is still alive and kicking. So,
Yeah.
50%, that's pretty good.
Thanks.
So, at the time, we were pitching for investors, and you actually went a different route. You bootstrapped your company and you brought it along, got it generating revenue, and then you started branching off into different ways. Could you tell me how that happened? Because I think it's really interesting for entrepreneurs, especially today with AI and everything, that you can have an idea, figure out a use for it, get customers, and not have to take investor money. That would be a real plus for a lot of the entrepreneurs.
Yeah. No, it's basically, I realized I don't think I have the skill set to go and raise capital. And I realized I better just try to get customers. So I've seen, we started out doing like consulting. So we had a consulting business. So we were doing consulting, provided services and like staffing, one of my first companies. And, revenue comes in, you make profit and you can possibly use that to build, your idea. So we went that route. It was kind of because we realized that one, when you raise capital, there's a lot of expectations and it's a lot of work. It seemed like the CEOs and friends I knew who were raising capital were spending all their time talking to people trying to get money.
It's a
And
full-time job. Yeah.
yeah, and I know, first of all, I'm not a good talker. And second of all, I don't know if I could do that. So I thought it's better just to try to get customers. So we've been going down that path. So we did start mainly as a service company. And then I pivoted because in my mind, when I'm a service company, I want to grow up and be a product company. So now we have 3 product companies, in different spaces.
So when we met, you were pitching Everywhere, and Everywhere, I've always loved Everywhere because it's one of the best ERP systems I've seen that combines all the elements. It's not strictly a resource planning program because it's got CRM built in, all kinds of stuff. Could you tell us a little bit about Everywhere?
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, it's funny because my background is actually, I'm not really, I don't know if I'm really an entrepreneur type because my background is actually accounting. So started out my career as a controller and I passed the CPA exam, but I never did the auditing hours. So I really always saw the accounting problems. And at one point, there was a company that we were doing work for and they told us they're going bankrupt. They're going to close the company down. So I ended up talking to the secured investors and we acquired the code base and some of the customers. And that's kind of our first product. So that was a long time ago. Took the product and we were using it because you kind of eat your own dog food. So I started using it and I realized some of the problems that there were there. So we started innovating and improving that. So, we have a great, general ledger system, accounts payable, accounts receivable, and, CRM inventory. So it's really, we built it using us and the existing customers at the time. Luckily, we've had some relationship with CPA firms and other organizations that were kind of sick of being stuck in the existing applications and worked with us. And, now we have a great customer base. We do a lot of distribution, field service, now restaurants, and we even have CPA firms using it to build their customers. So yeah, I really like it Everywhere because that's kind of my background, debits and credits. So
Yep. Well, I've seen you doing a lot of zigging and zagging over the years, and you've always managed to find what I like to call niche spaces where you say, oh, this would be really good here. I remember when you're working with a vending machine group
right,
and going down that way, like you were saying, distribution and things like that. But your
right.
product actually covers just about any industry at this point. And then you started Rattle Tech. Tell us a little bit about
Yeah.
Rattle Tech.
Yeah. I was involved in another company that, you know, I had a partner in the company. He sold his business and he made a lot of money. He wanted to kind of run that business. And I realized both of us, it wouldn't work out with both our personalities. So I ended up starting Rattle Tech. It was a service business. We primarily started doing services, building, cloud-based applications, mobile apps and things like that. So that was kind of our start. But then we started getting a lot of government customers, and one of the government customers wanted a specific application so residents can actually report issues, and it goes into work order system. So that's called a 311 solution, and community engagement solution. So we built that for a city, actually a local city, city of Ontario. They're very innovative, great city to work with. So we kind of productized that and we started getting more cities. And we liked that because we could solve specific problems for cities. And we were able to move pretty fast. Like we're able to add additional features and things like that quickly. And I think right now, it's called Savita app, that platform. I think it's the best in a space, even though we might be the smallest company in the space. So
That's awesome. So you've had some breaks along the way, and I think you kind of make your own luck. Your breaks came because you're constantly out there talking to people, and I know you were part. You talk about Ontario. I know you were part of their incubator program, and you did a
right,
lot of work with the city, and that probably led into some of the stuff. And then I know you worked with a district attorney's office and got them paperless.
right.
That must have been a big project for you. So tell us a little bit about how you do come into these lucky deals.
Yeah. So I think it's a combination of, one is we look for RFPs that are in our space or something we could work on. And there's specific RFPs that we find. So like we recently not recently, a year ago, won one with City of Santa Ana. And it was a great win for us. They're a big city. They're using our solution. So I think RFPs, and then once you get a couple good references, which we have now, you get referrals also. So that's kind of our key. We're also doing marketing and sales activity. That's possibly my weakest area. So, we love the referrals and, winning those things. But yeah, we're also out there hustling, it's a nonstop programs.
Yeah, you're a good hustler. And I know that for a fact because I've seen you in action, but it's funny because if you go to your LinkedIn page, there's nothing there. So,
Yeah.
the fact that you're not into marketing is very true, but that's what you hire people to help you with, right? So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about that. How have you been able to navigate certain waters that you don't have an expertise in? Do you partner with people? Do you find people that you gravitate towards? How have you?
Yeah. Well, one, I have mentors like, Jay. I actually ask Jay to lunch a lot and get ideas from Jay, but I have a network of friends who I talk to get ideas. And a lot of people, give me good advice. I do, I'm not an expert. I'm not even a programmer. My background is accounting. Even though I understand programming and I'm more of an analyst, really. So I have great people who work with me, programmers, and it's really the team. I'm just
Yeah,
the guy who started the companies, but it's the team members that really help us deliver. And I'm lucky; a lot of them have been with us for a long time. So,
yeah,
so
you
I
did
think
build a
that's
great team, and I've been lucky enough to work with them on some different projects, and
thanks.
they're always very responsive, receptive, and they go
Yeah,
that extra mile. I think they take on a little bit of your personality where, you'll present them with a problem and
right,
they'll take a look at it and they'll say, well, what about this, this, and this? And those are things that I didn't think of,
right,
but they're very valid. And so we come up with a better solution than I would have if I had just hired somebody. I think
right.
it's interesting
Thanks.
too that you talk about mentors and asking for help. And I think a lot of the problems that entrepreneurs run
Yeah,
into is for some reason we don't like to ask for help that
right. Yeah,
much,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I think it's funny because if I'm driving the car with my wife, I won't get directions. Now there's GPS everywhere, so I'm okay. But I am okay asking for help. You know, I think it's better. I've realized I made so many mistakes, and you've seen some of my mistakes,
Well, we've
crashing
both
guards and
seen
things
each
like that.
other's mistakes in that in that
Yeah.
era.
So I've learned the hard way, but now, I like getting advice from anyone who will give it. If they've been through an experience that I can learn from, I'd love to hear that. And then, my wife is a really fast reader. So early on in my marriage, maybe she'd read a book a week or a book every 2 weeks. And I was like, oh, I'm going to fall behind. She's going to get way too smart for me. So, and my background is, unfortunately, I passed the CPA exam, but I'm dyslexic. So, I knew I couldn't read as many books as her. So I started listening to Audible, and I love it. I'm always listening to things, listening to biographies, mostly business books, but you learn a lot from that. You can do it when you're walking, driving. So I think just constantly learning new things, and, it's much easier to learn nowadays than it used to be. So, with all the channels, AI and
That's true.
Audible video.
Unfortunately, too many people are leaning on AI too much. And
Yeah.
I just saw an interesting report that they did a report on, I think, Brown University, and the students were given a test and they were allowed to take it home, and they all used AI, and they got an average 98% score. And then they had them go into a room without access to AI, and the score grades averaged out at 48%.
Wow.
We're going to
Wow.
need to be careful that we're actually teaching people stuff and not just telling them how to
Yeah.
use ChatGPT.
Yeah, for sure.
So one of the things that I've seen you navigate, Emmanuel, and it's been very instructive for me, is sometimes relationships or partnerships don't go the way you want. Like you talked about, you partnered up with a guy and you realized you weren't going to work together, so you formed another company. And
Right.
could you tell us a little bit about that and how you can navigate those waters? Because I've seen you do a masterful job of working with people and getting out of sticky situations with everybody intact.
Yeah. Well, it's hard. It's a learning process, man. And it's really hard to part ways with a partner or a long-term employee. Luckily, it's been more on the partner side that I had that issue, and it's definitely a challenge. I always try to look forward, so I'm not looking back at, what went wrong, or I try not to worry about what people did in the past, just try to figure out a forward plan. So it's helped. It's never smooth. It's always, choppy, and some things go on, and, in one of them there were lawsuits. So it can be a grueling, but you gotta like move forward, think of the positive, and just try to get out of the situation, move forward. At the same time, you have to make sure all the employees know, we're all building something, and keep everyone, from getting anxious about these things. So it's definitely challenging. I think I just got through it. I think I grew up watching a lot of Rocky movies. So I just think you have to just keep going, keep moving forward.
Just keep
So,
moving forward. Well,
yeah,
I think that's important, is having that mindset of not
right,
trying to assign blame or not holding a grudge. Or, I mean,
right,
even when you were going through the middle of some of these sticky
right,
situations, I'd be talking with you, and you were never talking about how upset you were or how disappointed. It was all about, how do I get around this? How do I move forward?
right. Yeah.
I think that's a key, and that's a good point for everyone to take from that. So finally, I guess I got two more questions for you. Number one, what's your biggest challenge that you've faced so far in your entrepreneurial journey?
I guess, I think the biggest challenge has really been when you have unexpected problems. Like, I was in a lawsuit that was draining for us, because it takes your eye off the ball moving forward. I'd say that might have been our biggest challenge, because we were spending so much on legal fees that could have gone into the company. So it kind of stalled an organization maybe it stalled us for a year or two. All the excess money was going to pay attorneys. Um, I'd avoid lawsuits at any, you know, that it should have gone there. I should have worked it out. But unfortunately, when you're in a legal situation, the attorney says, don't call the other person. Finally, it worked out, because I said, I can't keep paying this stuff. I called the person. I said, what's up, man? How do we work this out? And we solved it. I should have done that, maybe 2 years earlier. Cause we were, you know, friends at one point. So, yeah. So
Right.
that might have been my biggest challenge.
That's a very good answer. And a
Yeah.
lot of times, lawsuits don't benefit anyone but attorneys. So if there's any way to avoid it, let's try to avoid those things. And I think the human touch is very important, because a lot of times lawsuits happen because people's feelings get hurt and they
Right.
don't feel like they're being heard. So they resort to filing a lawsuit or whatever. So that's a
Right.
great point, and I appreciate that. Finally, The last question, we've got a community of fellow founders, also a number of different service providers. We have investors, just a different variety of people. What, if you could ask for one thing from the community, what would that be?
If I can ask for anything, so I'm not sure, like we have 3 disparate businesses. I think the linear system we sell to law enforcement agencies, right? We have evidence management and interview room solution. Savita app, we sell to cities and counties. If people feel their county or city needs a solution like us, that's great. Reference is great. I always think like entrepreneurs need to understand problems, because really what we try to do is solve problems. So I like in these spaces that we're in, like, the accounting and like ERP side or the evidence management or even, problems that cities have. If we understood more problems, we're really good at building those solutions and adding some of those features if they're relevant into our product. So I like hearing about challenges people have because I think entrepreneurs don't know all the challenges, but we like to try to solve them. So I think that's pretty cool. So yeah, but anyone can reach out to me if they have any ideas or contacts. Yeah.
And one of the things we'll do is we'll put up a contact slide at the end of this, and it'll be in the podcast. So if people need to reach you, they'll be able to reach you through there. So Emmanuel, thanks a lot for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
and continued success. Congratulations. Not just 1, but 3 companies.
Thanks.
Good job.
Thanks.
Thanks.